So what I want you guys to do first here is imagine a huge commercial jet crashing, okay? And imagine the huge media outrage is going to happen. You know, it always makes headlines, a huge jet crashing. And even if a plane goes missing, you know, like the Malaysia one, that makes national headlines. Now imagine 10 of those things crash, killing every single person on board. And it seems crazy, but that amount of deaths is exactly how many people die from cancer each and every day. 10 commercial jets. And so what we do know is that we've made a ton of technical advancements in the last 50 years in terms of cancer research, everything. And still in the last 50 years, after spending billions and billions and billions of dollars, we're not any closer to a cure. We're not any closer to making treatments better than we were 50 years ago, let alone, you know, forever ago. And if this $1 billion, you know, the pink ribbon, anything, if these were doing any good, you would find that the more money we're putting into research, the less proportion of people would be getting cancer. Because obviously our population is growing and growing. So of course you may see the total number of cancers go up, but you're looking at the proportion, the percentage. So you would expect the more money you put into this system, the less percentage of people are going to get cancer. And what they're finding though, in the stats, in 1900, you had 1 in 20 people get diagnosed with cancer. In 1940, 1 in 16. 1970, 1 in 10. And today, 2016, it's 1 in 3. So I mean, it's literally exponentially increasing, and the money is exponentially increasing. And they're still not closer to any type of cure, nothing. And so what we got to realize though, it is a big business, okay? You're spending billions of dollars and you're pushing it through this cancer system. And so of course they're not going to be looking at preventative strategies because there's no money in that. And so when you're looking at these billions and billions of dollars, they're never going to, if they don't touch the prevention side of it, they're never going to get anywhere. And what's cool is though, just in terms of treatment alone, probably the most astounding research we've actually found is that possibly cancer can respond to just nutritional therapy alone. But we all know that that costs hardly anything. So not many doctors are going to be recommending that. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, completely reversing cancer from just nutritional therapy. And we're going to go over all of the research. And it starts out in 1931. There was a doctor named Dr. Otto Warburg. And he actually won the Nobel Prize in Physiology for finding the cure for cancer. Got the Nobel Prize for it. He titled it the Warburg effect. And he basically would hook people up with people with cancer under these PET scans. And he would find out that the areas that had the most glucose metabolism were the areas where the cancer was. So if they looked at an area of cancer, that area of cancer, the area that had the most glucose metabolism, actually had the worst prognosis. So the defining factor is glucose metabolism. And so what he found out is that cancer cells have a completely different metabolic system than normal cells. 100% different. And to explain it, there's actually a defect in the cancer's mitochondria where they can't get energy from alternative energy sources. They only have one source of energy, and that's glucose. Whereas a normal cell can get it from many different ways, but most notably glucose and fat. Glucose and ketone bodies is the only way normal cells can get it. Cancer cells can only get their nutrition through glucose. And so a guy named Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, he is a leading cancer researcher. His team of researchers, they found out that they were doing a study on these mice with advanced metastatic cancer, and they were putting them on a carb-free diet. And within 4 months, it'd be completely reversed. And that completely differentiated from the group of rats that had chemo, who still had cancer after 4 months, obviously, because chemo's killing everything. And not only are those rats reversing their cancer, they're getting healthier from this type of diet. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. And this guy here, Dr. Fred Hatfield, he's a PhD and he's an Olympic champion. They used to call him Dr. Squat because he set the squatting record at the time for 1,000 pounds. And he was diagnosed with severe bone metastatic cancer. And by 3 different cancer specialists, he was giving the same prognosis, 3 months to live. And so he figured, what the heck, I have nothing to lose, and he heard about something called nutritional therapy, so he decided to give it a try because he had nothing to lose. And he did it, went on a carb-free diet, and he actually completely reversed his cancer. Absolutely no sign of cancer when 3 different specialists said he only had 3 months to live. And so this started raising some eyes. Now, to kind of go over Dr. Warburg's discovery in 1931, where he got the Nobel Prize, this is what he found. Healthy cells, again, they have metabolic flexibility. They can use glucose for energy, but if there's no glucose, they can use fat as energy. So fat will turn into ketone bodies, and you can use ketone bodies as energy if there's no glucose available. So they have 2 ways to get it. Really, they can get it from protein too, but that's such a low amount, we're just going to simplify it. Now, ketones, when they found out, when you actually use ketones as energy, when you don't have glucose available, and you use ketones from fat, it's actually a lot cleaner form of energy. Way cleaner than glucose. In fact, you're generating so much less free radicals by burning ketones. You might have heard of the word ketosis. That's where you're actually burning ketones as energy instead of glucose. Your body is so much more efficient that way. It's amazing. Way less free radicals. Free radicals, as we know, is linked to aging. So less free radicals, less aging, more longevity. Cancer cells, they have that built-in mitochondrial fatal flaw. Your mitochondria, by the way, is the energy source of your cell. So they have this built-in fatal flaw in them where they don't have that flexibility. They can only get their nutrition through glucose, which is sugar. So when you eat bread, bread is a carbohydrate, a grain, a sugar. It converts itself in the body to glucose, and that's what feeds all your cells, including your cancer cells. In fact, your cancer cells bank on that glucose. It's the only energy source. And so if you eliminate carbs, like the diet we're going to talk about, the ketogenic diet, if you eliminate carbs, you're going to starve your cancer. And it honestly just seems so simple, and it's unbelievable how no cancer specialists are even advocating this, because it's documented. A guy won the Nobel Prize for this discovery. And so when you're talking about any type of cancer therapy, if you don't go by this nutritional approach, you're literally ignorant and stupid, because it's free and it's right here, and it's 100% effective. And so when you combine ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting as a cancer therapy, you're literally going to be just so ahead of the game. But again, it's not going to be promoted because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Chemo and radiation. And so when you look at this, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, I think I spelled that right, he's the leader in nutritional cancer therapy. He says this, and I quote, he says that when you restrict calories and you go on a ketogenic diet, you basically reduce glucose levels like we talked about, and you're increasing ketone bodies because you're starting to burn your fat as energy. The byproduct is ketone bodies. It's anti-invasive, obviously, you're just changing the nutrition. It's anti-angiogenic, that's how cancer cells spread. And it's pro-apoptotic, which means it's programmed cell death. It causes cell death in cancer. So by going on this diet, you're going to stop the spread of cancer and you're going to kill the cancer that's there, right there. And when you're looking at this again, carbs in the body, they get converted to glucose, and that's the energy source for not only your other normal cells, but your cancer cells. Cut carbs, decrease glucose, it's easy. You starve your cancer cells. Obviously, if you don't have a food source, you're not going to survive. And so metformin is a popular diabetes drug. And what metformin does is it reduces your circulating glucose levels in the body because you have diabetes. Now, metformin is also linked to a radically decreased risk of cancer. However, like any drug, it has a ton of side effects. You're talking like fatal vitamin B12 deficiency. You're talking a lot of things. So obviously the drug is not the way to go. But that just proves the point that if you decrease the source of food for cancer, you're going to reduce cancer risk. It almost seems too simple, and it's crazy how not many people know about this. So when you're talking about this diet, a ketogenic diet, it means that you minimize your carbohydrates to about 50 grams per day. In particular, the non-fiber carbohydrates, which is like anything but fruit and vegetables. So your breads, pastas, cereals, rice, all that stuff. Now, when you take out those carbs, you have to replace those with the majority of that as healthy fats and moderate levels of protein. Now, some of you guys might remember the Atkins diet. This is not the Atkins diet. Because notice, when we're talking about healthy fats here, we're talking about olives, olive oil. We're talking about coconuts, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, organic raw nuts, organic pastured egg yolks, meats, avocados. We're not talking about sausage and cheese for every meal, which is what the Atkins guys did. I mean, at some point you got to have some common sense, and you may lose weight, but do you really think you're going to get healthy from eating? You know, people would buy pizzas and just take the entire topping and just eat that and throw the bread away. I mean, but it was effective because it's effective at losing weight, I should say, but they were still sick, obviously. So this is not that, because we're not increasing protein. You're only eating moderate levels of protein with this. Too much protein is not good. So moderate levels, and most of your diet then is going to be healthy fats. And you're talking 50 to 70% of your calories as fat. Eating fat, healthy fats, does not make you fat. Just so we're all clear on that one. And then here, when you go on this diet, we're obviously we're not having any processed carbs in our body. So you're not going to have that glucose in your body. When you don't have that glucose energy source in your body, you're not going to have those cancer cells thriving. You're going to have more of that fat burning mode. You're going to have more ketone bodies, so your cells can utilize that as its energy source, and your body's going to be efficient. It's going to be burning a clean energy. It's kind of like biodiesel versus like this gas with tons of carbon emissions. You're going to be so efficient and so much healthier on this diet, it's crazy. And again, you're going to produce less free radicals, so you're going to age better, you're going to have more longevity, and it also regenerates your immune system. You actually, when your body goes into ketosis, your immune system gets boosted. So think about this. When you're sick, what happens to your appetite? Does it go up or down? Down. It goes down. Now, our body does not make mistakes. So the worst thing you could do is force yourself to eat a meal. And the reason why your appetite goes down, think about it, because your body wants to go to ketosis. It wants to boost your immune system. So your diet naturally goes away when you're sick because it wants you to go into ketosis and boost your immune system. But what do people do? Oh, here, I'll make you some, cinnamon and sugar toast. It's like, you kidding me? That's the worst thing you could have. You're going to increase glucose. So you want to go in ketosis, and your body's telling you that. So just listen to the body. It does not make mistakes. It's your innate way. So obviously, since we're spending billions of dollars, in today's cancer research, you would think that our cancer clinics, they use nutritional therapy, right? No. The food they give to the hospitals, it's going to be clean. It's going to be healthy fats. You're going to go there and you're going to have fresh coconuts and grass-fed butter. Well, the two forms of treatment they promote is obviously radiation and chemo. Ironically, the two treatments that actually cause cancer in the first place and actually make you sick 100% of the time because they kill all your cells, normal and cancer cells. What do they have at the food courts? Well, here's a cool doctor eating at McDonald's. He looks pretty nice, And so, again, at the cancer clinics, they have food there that is processed carbohydrate. They're literally giving you food that feeds your cancer cells when you're in that hospital to treat your cancer. Don't forget, gotta remember Dunkin' Donuts, okay? Because after McDonald's, in your shake, you gotta get some donuts to kind of wash it off. Now, again, you're completely feeding your cancer cells. Absolutely awful. But again, if you're going to rate their business model, holy crap, let's just keep feeding this diet that's going to cause their cancer, keep them coming back for more and more chemo. Well, the absolute minimum you're going to spend on chemo is $50,000 per patient. So, cha-ching, and as a business model, holy crap, they got it down. As a model that's going to go by patient outcomes and making people healthy and live a long, healthy life, they absolutely get a failing grade. I mean, they get an F- in this because, again, they're promoting something that's causing the disease they're in there to treat. So with our Western culture, when we're eating sandwiches, Pop-Tarts, pizza, French fries, muffins, brownies, all of that stuff, that's all literally processed carbohydrate. And so when you're going to try to switch to a ketogenic diet, it's going to take practice. And what's interesting is that we've completely lost our ability to burn fat. We only burn carbs. Even though we all have an enormous supply of fat, we can't burn it. And the reason is we never let our body go without glucose. We're always eating carbs every single meal, so we're always going to have glucose. If there's glucose available, your body's not going to break down your fat stores to turn it into ketones and feed your cells. So as long as there's glucose there, you're never going to burn your fat. Which is why all these diets telling you to go by the food guide pyramid, eating 6 small meals a day, never works. And that's why dieting is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so again, when your carbs are always present, there's no reason to burn your fat stores, especially in the midsection. So the keys to get into ketosis, there's 2 main ways to do it that's easy. First is you got to go many hours without eating. For example, after a good night's sleep, say you sleep for 8 hours, you're going for 8 hours. Hopefully we're not eating when we're sleeping. Any of you? Okay, so you're going 8 hours without eating. Well, you don't have a recently consumed meal to give yourself glucose. So your body's actually going to start burning fat and feeding your cells ketones. So if you go long periods without eating, you're going to go into ketosis, as well as intaking a ketogenic diet, a low carbohydrate diet. You're obviously going to reduce your formation of glucose, increasing ketone bodies, getting into ketosis. So those are the 2 ways, which means that combining a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting is the single best nutritional strategy if you want to not only reverse cancer, prevent cancer, but just to get healthy, period. Intermittent fasting is different than continuous fasting. Intermittent fasting is basically the most common way is where you reduce your eating window to 8 hours during the day. And what that means is you're only eating 8 hours out of the day, you're not eating 16 hours out of the day. Well, if you're sleeping, 8 hours of that 16 hours, you're sleeping. So really you're only not eating 8 hours out of the day. If you think about it like that. So if you go 16 hours without eating, you're going to have no glucose to feed your cancer cells. Your body's going to be forced to burn its fat stores, increase ketones, to just so your cells can thrive for brain food, heart food, everything. And so, again, healthy cells, they have this natural feedback mechanism. When there's a lack of food, they respond to that stress by conserving resources, by getting stronger as you put them through that healthy stressor of not eating. And so it's similar to exercise. Exercise is a healthy stressor. If you go through exercise, you're going to build up your tolerance and get healthier. So your cells, your normal cells, like these healthy, stressful environments, periods of not eating. In contrast, cancer cells, they don't have this. They like to continuously feed. They don't have any adaptation to a lack of food because they want food always and now. If you stop giving it food, they die. They don't conserve their energy. They don't get stronger as a result. They just die. And so that's the difference. So what we want to do is we want to put our body through healthy, stressful environments like intermittent fasting and ketosis, ketogenic diet, and you're going to reverse your cancer. And so this is a direct quote from the director of Abramson Cancer Center. Cancer cells are addicted to nutrients. When they can't consume enough, they begin to die. On the contrary, normal cells are not. When you don't give them nutrients, they actually get stronger as a result, which is why intermittent fasting is so good. And so I'm not going to go through and read every single one, but just in terms of intermittent fasting, I'm writing a book on it, and there's so many benefits of it, but we're just going to talk about cancer specifically today. And here's just about 4 research articles that just show how intermittent fasting, not even taking the ketogenic diet into account, reduces your risk of cancer. In this journal, Science Translational Medicine, they said that this actually can potentially replace chemo as a therapy in low-stage cancers. Now, it might even be able to do it in high-stage cancers, but this study didn't look at that. They just looked at low-stage cancers, and they found out that not only can it, if it's combined with chemo, can it enhance that therapy, but it can actually take its place. And there's the direct quote from that, where it can actually replace or augment the efficacy of chemotherapy. And so it doesn't, and this study also showed, it doesn't just starve your cancer cells, but it actually protects your cells from the toxicity chemotherapy provides. Because again, chemo is basically mustard gas. You're killing everything. And so basically to protect your cells from that potential toxin if you do intermittent fasting. You know, if someone already chooses chemotherapy as a route, you know, you have nothing to do but support them. If they just add intermittent fasting while they're going through that, they're going to survive and have a whole lot better outcome. Out of the Journal of Cell Metabolism, not only does intermittent fasting proven to reduce cancer, it increases multi-system regeneration. It increases your immune system, like we talked about, because you're forced to go through ketone bodies, a cleaner fuel, so you're going to burn more visceral fat, increase lifespan, memory, you're increasing brain function, decreasing cancer. I mean, it's all right there, but you're going to do everything. It has just so many benefits, intermittent fasting, and it's so easy. Basically, if you skip breakfast and you first meals at lunch, second meals at dinner, that's all. You don't have to restrict calories, you don't have to do anything. In this journal here, they say it blocks the development of precancerous cells. And again, it says intermittent fasting has an anti-promoting effect to cancer. Here they're talking about liver cancer, but really it's any cancer. It doesn't matter what cancer you're choosing from. In this journal article, Mechanism of Aging and Development, they had two groups of mice, one who were allowed to eat freely, another who were on intermittent fasting. They didn't change their diet at all. They ate the same amount of food, just one ate it in a restricted time window. The group that was on an intermittent fasting regimen had no incidence of cancer. The one that could eat freely, 33% of them got lymphoma. So you're talking about none to 33% by not changing what you eat, by not changing how much you eat, by just changing when you eat. And so, again, because you're reducing the free radicals, you're reducing aging, you're reducing everything bad, and you're increasing everything good. And so, how do we apply it today? You know, because when we look at the food guide pyramid, which is a complete joke, and I've talked about this, they mostly advocate, the bottom section is bread, cereal, rice, and pasta, 6 to 11 servings a day. That's what our government wants us to eat the most of. More than vegetables, more than fruits, more than fats, they want us to eat breads, rice, cereals. 6 to 11 series. And I talked about a couple of lectures ago that it's more accurate if you actually take the food guide pyramid and reverse it upside down. Basically, just do the exact opposite of what they tell you and you're going to be healthy. You do what they tell you, you're just going to continue on with the trend that we're going right now. And so again, they want your total fat to be below 10%, but they want your carbohydrates to be over 60%. Reverse that. Remember, we want 50 to 70% of our diet as healthy fats. And you only want nearly 50 grams of carbohydrates. This is more like 10 to 15% as carbohydrates. So flip it around. If you want to be healthy, even like this, and this is where it gets confusing because you look at labels and you're like, you see this little American Heart Association on your oatmeal or something. And you're like, oh, sweet, you know, this is good for my heart. Harvard, these guys are pretty smart, I would say. They said, no, not so fast. And they actually studied a similar product, say it was bread. One that had the label of American Heart Association stamped on there, one that didn't have the label. The ones with the label actually had more sugar. They were completely the same. And again, when you say whole grain is the biggest piece of crap I've ever heard, because a whole grain means that you start with a frickin' kernel and then you can pulverize it, do whatever the heck you want with it. As long as you started with it before the processing occurred, you can say it's whole grain. Just like how anyone can say it's natural, anything. And once you pulverize anything, it's completely, there's absolutely no health benefits. So this grain theory is bad. I mean, you might have a case if you're talking about ancient grains like buckwheat or barley or something like that, but we'd have to talk about that more. And so, again, their diet is promoting cancer. No wonder why it's 1 in 3 now. And today, when it was, 1 in 17 in 1940, carbs, eating like that, you're chronically elevating carbohydrates. You're chronically having elevated glucose levels, which means you're going to have chronically elevated insulin levels, leading to chronic disease. Cancer is one of your chronic diseases out there. So going by this diet, doing a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, it doesn't just reduce cancer. It's just the diet we are all meant to be on to be healthy. You go on this, you're going to be an efficient fat burning machine. Who doesn't want that? With all those benefits. And so when you do this, it's really going to do what no medicine, what no therapy can ever do. And that's literally not only prevent it, but also reverse your condition that you had in the first place. So I like to close with this. Just think about what if. What if cancer clinics, what if cancer specialists actually advocated this nutritional therapy of intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet? What if? Well, it actually put chemo and radiation to shame. It would kick their ass. What it would also do is it would be free. Yeah, you're not going to be spending billions of dollars anymore, because having someone stop eating bread, how much does that cost? It actually saves you money. You don't have to freaking buy bread anymore. I mean, it's so stupid how these doctors can be advocating this. It's insane. I can't even believe it. And the results, by doing this nutritional therapy, you're gonna get healthy. Oh my gosh. Can chemo get you healthy? Can radiation ever get you healthy? I mean, people actually die from the therapy than the cancer itself. So again, health is your wealth. So by just doing that ketogenic diet, reducing your processed carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, majority of healthy fats, moderate levels of healthy protein, you guys are going to be healthier than ever. Thank you. That concludes today. Any questions? Good. Oh. Yeah.
Ask some questions. No, just one. You know, like they say that your brain is running on glucose. So what is that?
Well, it is.
Right.
If
you're not providing any glucose, anything.
Right. So this gets a little complicated, but only about 3% of your brain absolutely needs glucose as energy. Okay. The rest actually can use ketones perfectly fine. So what happens is when you don't have glucose available, which we shouldn't, and we're actually healthier, what your body does is it does something called gluconeogenesis. It means producing new glucose, your liver actually does, from other sources. So, but what's cool is it only produces just enough for that 3% of the brain tissue. Exactly. So you're never gonna have any more to feed cancer. So that's the answer. But the other 97% actually just feeds perfectly fine and actually prefers ketone bodies. Yeah, but I mean, the whole oatmeal thing again, because that's another one of those. Quaker Foods actually just came out. It's completely poisonous with glyphosate. It gets complicated, but if we were talking about ancient grains, we could talk a little bit more about that, and you know, you might have some type of case, but we're not eating that. And oatmeal again, especially Quaker oatmeal.
Well, this is that
Steel cut.
steel cut.
Yeah, and here's the thing about that too is that it's high in fiber. So when you have a carbohydrate like that that's high in fiber as well, same thing as fruits. Fruits has a lot of carbs, but it's also high in fiber. That fiber actually doesn't cause that same glucose increase as something that without the fiber. So that's why when you're talking about limiting carbohydrates to 50 grams, a lot of times you're talking about non-fiber carbohydrates. Okay. You know, ideally though, if you have cancer, now only if you already have cancer, I would say eliminate fruits too, a lot of them. You can still have like berries. Berries are one thing that doesn't increase glucose like usual. But again, for anyone just trying to prevent cancer and be healthy, I would say definitely eat fruits. But for those who already have cancer, I would want to restrict carbohydrates even more, based on this research. If you're just going to get healthy, you don't have to be as stringent. You know, I'm not saying like absolutely no carbohydrates. But again, if you do have cancer, it's a different story. You're going to do basically exactly what this is, but you're going to be a lot more strict. That's what I would do. It's all your choice, but that's what I would do. All right, anyone else have questions, you can ask me privately, but thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.